I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to our, is this on? Yeah. Am I on? Am I live? Looks like I'm on. Welcome to our April 24th, 2018 Tiverton School Committee meeting. This committee has not met in open session since the tragic and untimely passing of Mr. David Frerish. He was a principal of our Tiverton Middle School. He served the families and students of Tiverton for 6 years as vice principal and 7 years prior to that as a science teacher. I did not know Mr. Frerish well, but in the few times I spoke with him, it was clear to me that he was a good man and a fine and dedicated educator. In the words of Mr. Frerish, we have lost a member of our family and a good friend. I know he will remain in the hearts of the students and families he helped and served. I ask that you now rise and spend a few moments in silent reflection in honor of Mr. Frerish, after which I have asked Dr. Lori Dias-Mitchell to share a remembrance of him with us. Thank you. Dr. Dias-Mitchell, thank you.
I want to welcome Mr. and Mrs. David Frerish, David's parents. Thank you. Mary Adams, American educator and philosopher, once said, "The student is infinitely more important than the subject matter." She added that educators do not need to establish a deep, time-consuming personal relationship with every student. Rather, what we must do is to be totally and non-selectively present to the student, to each student, as she or he addresses us. The time interval may be brief, but the encounter is total. And that is what David Frerish achieved. We have seen evidence of this over the past several days. Countless students and their parents and guardians have reached out to communicate the singularity of their experiences with Mr. Frerish, to stress that he found a way to relate to each student that was responsively unique. Notwithstanding his firm and loud warnings to our kiddos in the cafeteria that a silent lunch would be enforced if they didn't simmer down, David Frerish was innately quiet and reserved. These qualities made his strong connections to students, staff, and families all the more personal, sweet, and precious. To know David Frerish was to love him. To lose him is to grieve, learn, and be transformed by his example, by his strength, and by his softness, by the richness of his many roles, his ideals, and his values. So let's never focus on losing David. Let's focus on what David brought into this world: a love of family and the natural world, consistency of purpose, loyalty, and the driest sense of humor. It was absolutely dry and not cutting. In his honor, please everyone, look to the person to your left and to your right. Join hands with them in community.
Thank you, Lori. Mrs. Black?
Yes, I'd just like to say a few words. David and I sat every Wednesday at karate. I had my grandchildren, he had his son. And at the end of the class, they have to bow and thank the person that brought them. So my grandchildren would bow, and his son would bow, and then he'd run over and hug David. It was so beautiful. Then we had the dodgeball tournament just a few weeks ago. That middle school, now remember. And all the kids came in, and some of them didn't want to play when they were in school. When they got there, they wanted to sign up. You know how that is. But David didn't leave anyone out. No matter who wanted to play, it was like, come on, hurry, come on, sign up, sign up. And he stood there, and he managed the whole thing by himself. It was amazing. And he stood under the basket when they had the half-court shot, and he caught every ball, and he got almost every one of them in. That's how I knew he was a great athlete. I hadn't known that before that, but I said to myself, he's a great athlete, a great person, and we're going to miss him dearly. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Can I pull off, just for the vote, 5B123?
Uh, 5E or 5B?
B.
5B. 1, 2, 3. Is that a motion?
Yes.
All those in favor? Okay, and so now I need a separate motion for the remainder of the consent agenda.
Motion for the remainder of the consent agenda? Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Mr. Rurick? No.
Yes, Tiverton, long-term math sub, Tiverton High School, James McAndrew. Newspaper advisor, Tiverton High School, Christine Tulin. Track and field coach, Brad Botvin. Grade 3 long-term substitute, Courtney Wood. High school tutoring, Nancy Carrero, Terry Roy, Lee Cusimano, Dave Landock, and Liz Cottrell.
So for 5B, 1, 2, and 3, I don't want to hold up the vote. It's just, I just wasn't here when you were discussing it, so I
Okay.
just wanted to vote on it separately.
I see.
That was it.
Okay. Can I have then a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda, items 5B, 1, 2, and 3?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Abstentions? Opposed? Okay, 3 to 1. And I should add, Mrs. Pava was unexpectedly unable to be here tonight and sends her regrets. And now I'd like to entertain a motion to move up item...
Do you want me to name them?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please, Mr. Rivera.
That's okay. Science curriculum, spring, summer writing, James Aguilar, Margaret Brennan, Lee Cusimano. Math curriculum writing, Kristen Destrimps, Luann Pauls, Amanda Verastro, Donna Larson, and Terry Roy. Social emotional learning, Nikki Arujo, Sherry Alves, Anne-Marie Donnell, Christine Griffith, Allison Lees, Anna Morin, and Erica Perkins.
Okay, thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to move up items 9A and E.
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor? Mr. Rurick?
Yes, the 9A, at our last construction meeting, which was held last Tuesday, Mr. DeQuattro from RGB Architects brought to the subcommittee's attention that when they started taking down the ceiling tiles here at the high school, we discovered that the draft walls, that is the ceiling or the divider between the hallway and the classroom, in some cases does not go all the way up to the deck, and what that means is that if there was ever a fire, smoke could go right from the hallway into the classroom. This is how they constructed the building 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and we discovered it as part of our renovations. We're bringing it to the school committee because it's a fire code issue that we need to address. The subcommittee is recommending that the work, which originally was projected to be $250,000, but Mr. DeQuattro has worked with Aalborg to get that number down to $200,000 for all the work, and that would come out of the contingency fund for the bond that we have. We currently have approximately $1 million. We really haven't touched that contingency fund yet, and that's the recommendation from our subcommittee, and I'm asking the committee to approve the recommendation.
So I'll ask for a motion for approval for purposes of discussion at least.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. So I don't know if any of the committee members have questions about this and sort of the technicalities of it. There's a few different moving parts.
Because we have members of our subcommittee, and we also have Mr. Green from RGB, Dave Green, has sat in on our meetings. If you guys have any technical questions, I'll
And I
defer
think I
to
actually understand it at this point
our
too.
subcommittee, Susan and Jim.
My question's not necessarily technical.
Good for you.
Yeah, because I wouldn't understand it. That's why I'm not on the building committee. Has the fire department in town done an inspection, and will we be cited if we don't do this work?
We could be.
We could be, because it's a known, in other words, every year, to answer your first question, is every year we have annual inspections by the fire marshal. This wouldn't be part of the ordinary inspection, from my understanding, because we've never been cited for it before. And you would only know it by going out there and looking, and you can actually see in different spots where there's openings between the hallways and the classrooms. And it's not everywhere throughout, it's periodic, for whatever reason. It's not uniformed as far as not having those, what they call draft walls built in, but it is something that, now that we're aware of it, we do need to address it.
Have they been out, the fire marshal, or no?
I don't believe the fire marshal has been on site to look at they've come, I don't want to say the fire marshal's been here recently.
So we just know this is code?
We know it's
Right.
code.
Mr. Perry?
Can I speak?
Absolutely.
Okay. The problem we have now, well, first of all, because it's open, it's a lot easier to fix now than coming back once we put the tiles back up. And it doesn't matter if the fire marshal's been out here or not. RGB told us about it, so now we're liable.
Right.
And now that we're telling you people about it,
Well, but
you're also liable.
RGB going to be doing the work.
No.
Yes.
All due respect to RGB, I just.
Alborn.
No,
RGB is not doing it.
RGB works for us.
Alborn.
They're the project
They're the
manager.
consultant.
Project manager.
They're the consultants, and Alborg does.
I'm just saying we need to do our due diligence.
Right, Alborg is doing the actual work.
Which is fine, but when you have somebody come to you and say, hey, you need to spend another $200,000, and they're referring the work to the people, they're working hand in hand with the people that are doing the work. And I'm not saying, I don't know this at all, I'm just saying it's up to us to make sure we do our due diligence,
Right.
that this is work that's needed.
So RGB is actually our agent, so they're representing our interests. So
They work for
it
us.
is their recommendation, and they're the ones that negotiated the adjusted cost. But what Mr. Perry is pointing out is that we were sort of in a state of grace. We are no longer in that state of grace because we've been notified that the code violation exists.
And you guys, like the building committee, you know about this code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So once you're notified, that's a code violation.
Basically, it
And
So it's not like maybe it's a code, maybe it's
No.
it's a code.
oh, it's a code violation. Yeah.
and we have been told by our agent that we need to do this work, so we're kind of, and the fire marshal could come in and tell us that we need to do it tomorrow, I expect, or
Well, that was kind
he
of
could
my
come in
question.
tomorrow and
That was
say,
kind of my question,
you need to do
is
this
it's
work,
not
and,
code.
No.
and then the vote is almost irrelevant.
And we don't have the issue, and someone might say, well, what about the middle school? The middle school was designed 10 years later, in 76, and it goes up to the decking. So we don't have that issue at the middle school, it's just here at the high school.
Yeah, so it's just not, how that's code, but, when you're building your house, no, it's.
I think it's an issue that has escaped notice to date.
We've never had it open like
Never
that.
had it open.
I've
Right.
never done anything to the building.
Which is fine, I
Yeah.
just was trying to
And that
get some clarification.
Yep.
certainly helps the cost that it's now all exposed as well.
Agree. Are there any potential additional surprises to come our way?
You know, I think we're about 60% through the project.
Old building.
The biggest, our
And
biggest
and-
concern, I'm sorry, our biggest concern is when they put in the boilers.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
But we, at our last meeting, when we talked last week, that was the question I asked to Dave, was if we spend this 200,000, if the committee approved it, does that give us enough in reserve for any unforeseen, problems? And he was comfortable with that we still have enough in reserve to come up with any unforeseen issues.
They've come up with ways of saving us money. We have out these elbows that are full of asbestos in the building. And years ago, you'd have to have somebody come in and quarantine it off. Now they're just going to wrap it, cut it, and take it out. So they're actually saving us a lot of money.
Well, that was gonna be my, that's why we have the contingency.
And they've thrown in a lot of freebies.
And that's why, and again, that's why you have the contingency fund for unforeseen expenses. We needed it for the elementary projects and for the high school project. You just have things that you just don't know about. And this is one of those things that there was no way to foresee this.
This is not a new appropriation. It is rather a reallocate, or it's specified allocation of the contingency fund that's already in the
Good to be clear.
scope of the budget.
Ask the questions, and everyone knows how we're spending it, because we're getting lots of questions about how we're spending money right now. So
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that people understood this wasn't an optional thing.
No.
No.
That this is a serious code violation, and that, this is why we're trying to address it now.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Any other discussion? Any other comments from, I'll recognize Mrs. Levesque, Mrs. Zimick, and Mr. Odell, all members of our hardworking committee who are invaluable in their sort of advice and support. If you guys want to say anything, but my advice is that you
You came all
Nah.
this way.
They're shy. They like to talk when we're in our
They're shy?
subcommittee. There's no one.
No, I think Dave said it very well. If you have further questions, glad to answer them, but I think Dave covered it well. It is
Okay.
absolutely code.
There's a motion on the floor. I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you guys. So we have also item 9E.
Yes, as I said in my summary to the committee, progress on the roofs are going along quite well. At the high school, all the roofing has been replaced except for the senior lounge area and the gymnasium area, and a small section from the boiler room to the high school, that walkway. They were still working on that last week. I'm not sure if they finished it yet. But otherwise, all the roof's been done here at the high school. The rest of the work at the high school and at the middle school will begin after school gets out. At the middle school, all the roofing is done, and I gave you a diagram of the gym area, the music area, cafeteria. All that's been complete. Over vacation, they were working over the fifth grade and really the sixth grade hallway, that part of the roof. And again, once that's complete, everything will shut down until the end of June, where they'll come in and finish off the roofs. As far as interior work here at the high school, the main office and the nurse's office and that whole suite has been renovated, new ceiling tiles, new lights. The air conditioning units will be ready to go by the end of May. If you drive in and you look up over Mr. Ashley's office, you can see the new units. They've been installed already on the roof of the middle school. The main office and library will be up and running by the end of May. The air conditioning, the lights and ceiling tiles have been replaced already. Here at the high school, when you walk outside here, that's just one example of the return air ducts being installed. They're being done, I believe they're finished on the third floor here, and they were wrapping up last week on the tech ed room, that wing down there. So they're working quite quickly at night, getting those reverse airflow or the airflow vents put in. Same at the middle school. The entire ceiling tiles up on the second floor have been removed. The return air vents have been installed, and 8 classrooms have been redone already, ceiling tiles and lights, 8 classrooms, and the 4 computer labs. The classrooms are in the 8th grade corridor, and they're just really making good progress, and we knocked on wood last Tuesday. We're a little bit ahead of schedule as far as doing everything. We haven't decided yet whether it's May 1st or mid-May. We'll be turning the heat off at both schools, and then they'll begin I know, everyone's, and then, they'll start removing the boilers in both schools. So we're really making good progress on both the HVAC systems and the roofs. Does that cover it, guys?
Yeah, you did good.
Any
Paid
questions?
attention.
Just one comes to mind. I haven't heard any issues with leaks as of late.
No,
That's a
no.
good thing.
And they also did the superintendent's office.
Rain, too.
That was done
Okay.
over vacation. We relocated for the week, and now we're back. And again, our offices now look just like the main office here at the high school and the middle school did. It's all open now. We've got that open look and
The industrial look.
the industrial look. They pay a lot of money in the cities for those lofts.
Why are we spending to cover it?
Yeah. Well, I will say it looks better than the ceiling tiles that we had up there, so it's an
Oh,
improvement,
lovely.
looking at the steel girders. And the other area where we save money is that we've been fortunate that the steel, once they open up the roof, we haven't had to replace a lot of steel. The biggest section that they had to replace was down over the superintendent's office.
So the boilers, you figure about how long?
That will take from the beginning to the end, and correct me if I'm wrong, it'll take us until mid-October
Okay.
to get everything out, connected.
That was about the target, yeah.
Our target's mid-October. I mean, it has to be mid-October because
Yeah,
that's when
because
it gets cold.
chilly.
So, and then the rest of the lights and the ceiling tiles in both schools are mid-November. Although they are moving at a pretty good clip, so that might be.
Yeah.
Thank you to
maybe
the
even
building
sooner.
committee.
It does
Thank
seem
you.
like that was gone
I know, everyone's not
fairly well.
Well, again, a lot of, because it's done at night, so we don't have the problems that we had with when we were doing the roof during the day, so. And HVAC systems, at least when they're being installed, don't leak, so we caught a break there.
Now, we had also approved the parking lot.
Yep.
Is this going to wait until after all
We
of this
have
is
to,
done?
I've talked with Mr. Mendes, we have to coordinate with Aalborg as to when to bring them in. We're looking at, we want to do it end of July, early August.
But
Before
not
the
be in their way.
And not be in their way. So we're going to try to work out with the contractor. Maybe they can come in on the weekend and do it. It won't take that much. I don't think it'll take that long for them to do it, but Mike we're working with Cardi's and trying to schedule that.
Any other questions?
Because they're and just to go back to that, because they're moving so quickly with the roofs. Once the roofs are finished, a lot of that stuff you see out back will be gone. So we should be able to figure out a window to do the paving without much of a problem.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Again, our thanks to
Thank you very much.
Mr. Perry, Ms. Levesque, Ms. Zimick, Mr. Odell, and all the other members of the committee. Thank you. So I think we're on 7A, policy development and review. I'm more than happy to take these up as a whole, unless people would like to consider them individually, but I'll ask for a motion to approve open forum policy number 735, recruitment, advertisement, and hiring policy and practices for Tiverton School District administrators and faculty number 981, interview process and procedures for selection of principals and other administrators policy number 993, and interview process and procedures for selection of non-teaching personnel policy 994.
Second.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second. The only comment I have is that policy number 981 was renamed to just be school district faculty, not administrators.
That's correct.
Am I correct in that?
Yeah, we didn't pick that up,
Yeah.
but it won't change.
Yeah, it's in the documentation,
Yeah.
but just in the agenda, it's still listed as administrators. Any discussion? Okay, I'll ask for a vote, and with thanks to the
Thank you to the
policy subcommittee,
yeah.
all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for taking that citizen piece out, or whatever it was. The open forum,
You
I didn't like that.
didn't like that?
No. Have to get your passport or something. I don't have one.
You what? A passport?
No, I'm not going anywhere.
I thought you just sort of open the vein and you bleed maroon. Isn't that the way it goes?
That's what I think.
All right. Number 8, old business, Charter Review Commission update. Mrs. Black, anything?
Yes, I've given you the copies, and I have some more for Mr. Eric, not too thick. Important ones now, though, that were coming down to the end. And there was a public hearing the other night. Mr. Odell was there, and Mr. Odell. And one of the things I brought up that we've talked about many times is that the optional budget for the school committee and town councils has to be taken out, since it's the same number as the final budget. And also, the public hearing is not really a public hearing because the docket's already printed. We've mentioned that many times. And then the fact that the petitioner doesn't have to show up at the public hearing, the person that puts the petition in. Because at the town meeting, if you remember, and I reminded them of this, it was in real time. So if someone stood up at the microphone, and one year they did, and they said, I want to take $200,000 out of the school, and I want to take it from the teachers. And so everybody clapped, and then Mr. Eric said, no, I'm sorry, that's a contract. You can take the money out, but it has to come out of the programs. And all of a sudden, oh, I don't want that to happen, and they sat down. So information in real time did change people's minds, and that doesn't happen now, because at the public hearing, no matter what anyone said, nothing can change. So those are the different things, plus the 1218. There's many more of those things on there, and they've been working with the town council on resolutions and different things. So when I go Monday night, I'll get more papers for you, because it's going to become very interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Before school daycare update, item 8B.
Can I
Yep,
just go
sorry.
back to that?
Yeah, sure.
So, I guess.
Surprised at the silence.
Just me?
I thought I was just gonna move things along.
Jerry, throwing some, I don't know. That'd be-
So once they're done, I think this body needs
Yes.
to look at what's being proposed, and we need to be prepared. Sure, we need to be prepared, I think, to testify before the council, who's going to make
Absolutely.
the final decision about what goes on and what doesn't. So just so that,
Yeah.
you know, that's probably going to be a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, and we've also said we have to give them to our legal counsel if we have a
Right.
question whether they are
Well,
legal or not,
And if
you
there's
know.
any legal issues, I want to also present
That's
that
right,
to the council.
that's right,
So
Right.
I
yeah.
just- That's
And-
going to be a pretty quick turnaround.
And it
I
has
would-
to be presented by August 8th to the state, language and everything, so that's the final date.
So what's their timeline for having,
They're going to have public hearings and everything.
But
The
do they have
council
a-
said last night that they're going to start accepting things and having, even if they need more than one public hearing, they're going to have a few public hearings.
When's the charter review done?
when are they gonna have their final copy to the teacher?
When are they going to have it?
The charter review.
Oh, we don't know yet.
Well, when's their turn?
Do they have a,
End of July?
July 17th, I
July
think they
17th.
expire,
By
right?
then,
Yeah, so, of course, and then, like I said, it has to be to the state by August 8th,
okay, so we're going
finalized.
to have very little.
So we'll have to get that, absolutely.
Because what will happen, that will be a tactic that they'll use, is give little time for
Right.
people to come and, to analyze what's being proposed
Well,
and
it's,
then
yeah,
speak to
it
it.
has to do with when the ballot has to be certified,
Right. Yeah.
which is probably not until like September or something like that. I would
It's
guess.
August,
I don't
right?
know.
It has
Well,
to go
the
up to the
state-
state by August.
No, but, I mean, we don't want our attorney looking at 100
No.
charter
No, no, no.
proposals, So
No.
we'll have to go through first and
Right.
identify which ones. we
That's
want.
The
right.
ones that we are concerned.
That's what we're going to do.
Right,
Okay, that was it.
Thank
Got
you.
it. Okay. Anything else? Okay, item 8B, before school daycare update. Ms. Dolly Roach.
Thank you. You have in your packet a summary. Unfortunately, the way it printed, you didn't quite see all the answers, so I did a brief presentation, very brief. This survey went out to all the parent guardians of children enrolled in our elementary schools. It's 1,101 email addresses and 591 families total. 251 people responded rather quickly, and 98% of those were guardians. 68% said that they absolutely need before-school childcare. That's just the visual for that. If in the future, would you be interested in morning childcare on site at one of Tiverton elementary schools? So very high majority would be in the future. They may not need it today, but they would be interested once it was established. And then we asked about how families who responded currently manage their before-school childcare. So you can see in the packet as well that most of them manage it through friends' childcare or family member support, adjusting their schedules and relying on neighbors. About 22% altogether pay someone to provide childcare. The rest of the questions on the survey were the ones where there was some sort of issue with the packet. So there is a question about how much people pay for before-school childcare. That was open-ended. And you can see, if you choose to follow the link in the memo, you can look at all the answers. It is an interactive link for the committee. But people responded from, I don't pay much at all. I pay $20 a day. I pay $15 a day. I pay by the hour. But it does give you quite the range there. And again, online, you can scroll through that and see each answer if you're interested. The remaining questions were also open-ended, and so what you'll see here are word clouds, where the size of the word represents the number of times or percentage of times it was addressed. So concerns that families would have about childcare if it were offered in one of our elementary schools. Again, the size of the word shows the priority of the issue. The computer did that text analysis for us. And then when people visualize high quality before school childcare, what do they envision? A lot of people talked about a calm start to the day.
Doesn't have to be quiet, that's good.
And obviously safety. Breakfast. We asked a question about which local organizations and agencies come to mind. These were their responses. And then there were lots of, again, open-ended questions about additional information they'd like to share. So again, for the committee, that you can look at that through the link that you have in the memo. Just to follow up, I did submit a what they call a Newport County Small Grant to the Rhode Island Foundation on behalf of the district. That was submitted in February with a request for about $9,000, focusing on leadership from a committee of parents. And that committee would work on all the many required licensures, Bright Stars rating status, which is online and run by our state, and the development of a request for proposals from community providers. So the Rhode Island Foundation notes that they will let people know about those grants by the end of May. And there is a lot of work, as we discussed at a prior meeting. So in the proposal, I did note that the earliest start would be in October. And again, a parent committee would really take lead. I think we have a lot of families interested and would probably have strong interest were we to get that far.
So what's the grant is? What's the $9,529 for?
So since our budget does not have any planning or logistical work in terms of working with DCYF, getting site licenses, having the various rating and self-assessment tools done, and we don't have someone to focus on that work, this grant would allow a committee of parent leaders to take on that work, honor them for a little bit of their time through things like gift cards. And
Given the huge interest, couldn't we go ahead and approve $10,000 for this in hopes that we get the grant, but couldn't we just go ahead and move? Because I worry about an October start date. That's kind of, you're already a month in. Or do you think timing-wise it's probably going to be that anyway, regardless of when the money comes in?
as you may recall, when Mr. Burek and I went to the East Bay Community Action Program, they said they took 6 months to coordinate and organize, and that was their work. So I don't know that we have the hands on deck to do the work. Certainly, do whatever the committee wishes. But I think we'd need to have a point person.
But October seems aggressive.
It does.
With money.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make a point. I brought this up to this body in October of 2017. So I think it's clear from the survey results that we finally got that there is an interest, that there's a need. As a working parent myself, that top line in the results that said you made accommodations within your own schedule, I can speak to that. My husband worked second shift for 8 years simply to make sure that we had coverage for childcare at home.
Great.
And I know that there are so many families out there who make immeasurable sacrifices just to make sure that their children are cared for in the morning, and where they could possibly have different career options, honestly, if they were able to just get there at an earlier hour. So I think I would like this committee to consider making a commitment to moving forward with putting a plan together to get this started as early as reasonably possible. I don't necessarily have a problem with October, because it gets us started with the new school year with the hopes of having something in place shortly thereafter. But I really don't want us to sit on our hands and just let time continue to march. Obviously, there's an interest, and I think that we can serve our parents well with this.
But I think the issue is, as Amy was saying, is who's going to be the point person, because everybody's busy doing multiple things right now.
We'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, that's the issue. And, I think the $10,000 I'm not worried about. And we certainly could put a committee of, parents together, but it's who's going to lead it. That's the issue, I think, right now, because everybody is busy doing, they all wear 10 hats.
We
So
all do.
it's one more.
So do we have a commitment? Can we take a vote?
I don't think we posted it. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure that we posted this to take a vote to appropriate money to sort of make the next step in a feasibility study. It's before school daycare update.
So can we put it on the next agenda?
We could.
And perhaps in between now and then, if the administration could come up with a timeline of what they feel is doable, and just a high-level plan of how they see it happening.
Well, and I think that's, so if...
Very high level.
And maybe there might even be, if we offer a stipend, somebody might step forward to point it. So, those kind of things.
No, I agree with Diane. We have to start getting things done. We too many times we continue it, we look into it, we investigate it, and kids lose out from babies to high school. Like when we don't let someone come in and help us, things like that. We have to start making decisions and getting things
I
done.
don't disagree, but it's...
And I understand,
What would you like people not to do?
No, I
in
know,
order to
I
do
know,
this?
I know.
That's always the question. There's always
It's
choices.
true, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so what would you like people not to do
I know.
in order to do this? That's
I don't think, Mrs. Plash, that that's necessarily
So you
the
think
issue.
they
I
can-
think,
you think they can do this along with everything else that's being done at the same time?
I'm not suggesting that. I would ask our administration come up with a plan, and I don't think that that's asking too much.
Come up with a plan.
A high-level plan of how this could be accomplished.
And like I said, that's why I brought it up to begin with, that I don't necessarily want to wait for a grant because it's clear that the interest is there.
Yeah.
But maybe, like I said, maybe offering a stipend, maybe, getting, just some other options so that we can get it moving and not have it be,
So I guess I need to clarify what where the discussion is. So clearly there's an interest. We had 1,100 surveys, about half, 500 or 600 responded, I think was the number. Actually, do you know how many kids that actually represented? It was 500 families. Doesn't really make that much difference, I don't think, but,
I don't know off the top of my head.
773.
okay, yeah, I was just saying, everybody has 2.5
that
or something.
the whole-
So,
That's all the elementary schools.
Okay.
yeah, so,
So 50.
so there clearly seems to be an interest. I have two observations. It seems one is we need a more detailed plan of how you would actually implement that, and that's what the grant is about. That would, I think, presumably include a business plan, because this is not a allocation of funds from the district. This is something that would have to be self-sustaining
You could also-
financially.
My understanding with this wasn't budgeted, and so when I was asked to look into it,
Right.
I wrote a grant for it.
Right.
That does not in any way mean it's not a valuable or important thing.
No.
I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to move forward on this.
Right.
Again, I wasn't clear that this was a priority for the committee since it wasn't budgeted.
But
I wouldn't hold it up because we're waiting for a grant, it's $10,000.
Absolutely.
$5,000.
Whatever you would like to do, I'd be happy to move forward.
Mr. Rurick, you were going to say something, or you
No,
thought better of it?
thought better of it.
I can see why.
Maybe we need to see, and Jerry's right, this is gonna be self-sustaining, we're gonna charge to do this. This isn't
Yeah.
it's gonna be like our.
This is not an entitlement that we're creating.
Right.
if you will.
It's gonna be like our lunch program, it needs to cover its own cost.
That might not be the right
Yes,
analogy
it has,
Yes, so the
Two times that we talked about
hopefully
this
be more
prior,
efficient at that.
we
Yeah.
did provide sort of an overview of what would be done. I'd be happy to find that again. And we did get a pretty lengthy list of what would need to be done.
And there are a number of vendors out there, right, that
I
we could
don't know.
potentially contract with.
That I can't speak to. We would have to develop an RFP and make sure we had space and location and the vetting from the various agencies, DCYF,
So,
Bright Stars. So again, there's is a lot of information that Mr. Rourke and I provided, and then additionally, the proposal itself, which I'd be happy to share, has a budget and a timeline in it.
Yeah,
So
maybe just start with that next time.
happy to share that. And
and I guess, so it sounded like the idea of this grant money was to sort of continue the feasibility study, if you will, or make a more concrete plan.
and
with
develop an
committed
actual
personnel to
response
actually do that
for proposals.
work.
Yeah.
If I understood, Diane, your view was, well, we could just do that without necessarily, or did I misunderstand what you were saying?
No, my goal is to make sure that this doesn't lose traction again,
Okay.
honestly. And if we can ask for, what are the next steps? Would it be to develop just a high-level
Yeah.
plan with a timeline,
And
and then so be it?
And I
That's what we
think,
do next.
okay, and I think what Amy's getting at is that with that grant money, you now have people that you don't, it's not a committee of volunteers who may or may not show up or may not be, sort of hardworking. You now have some funding to
That
sort
was
of hold
my
them
vote. Let's
accountable.
not wait for the funds.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
We can provide you an overview of the information that we received from Newport
Yeah,
on their, on their program and all the steps that need to be taken.
okay,
But we do need, I mean, we can, at the next meeting, if you vote, we can create the RFP to find a company or a firm that will be the provider, because we can't do it ourselves. So we're gonna have to RFP it to find a agency that would do that, and then you also, again, it's not, it's more complicated because we have to work with DCYF on approval and all that, so it's
Right, but
a
we
combination
can
of
also go ahead
things.
and approve the $10,000. If we get the grant to cover it, great. If we don't, we can approve.
Put that on the next agenda.
Put it on the.
Well, again, but again, when, how this evolved also was, we brought it up, it was an agenda item, and I believe Dr. Larkin said, well, we should survey our parents to gauge the interest. We
my
did
fault.
that.
Okay.
We haven't met for a month. We've had this information. I
Right.
mean, it's not like we, you
No.
know, it's the first time we could report out.
Yeah, no,
So
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to put that on the,
I think we're moving like a locomotive, so,
I just don't want a grant to,
no,
I
yeah.
don't want us to be waiting for a grant
Okay.
when we have funds that can pay for it.
But at the same time, I think I don't think we've posted this appropriately to
So then
approve
we'll do
money
it next
tonight.
Yeah.
But I also think that we also need a more concrete sort of outline of how those funds are going to be expended if we approve that as well before taking it up.
Great.
So we can put that on the.
Okay?
Thank
So,
you.
Glad we're all in agreement. No votes taken. Anything else? All right.
Yeah, just one thing. Thank you for
Yep.
performing the survey
Huh.
and getting back to us with the reporting.
Thank you. Okay. Item 9B, discussion on career pathways.
Amy, you want to?
Is that you again?
Yes.
Lucky you.
Thank you. So just four actually, brief updates. As you know, the engineering pathway is solidly established. This is the third year of Tiverton's development and investment with federal Perkins funds. And we are excitedly awaiting the installation of some high-level equipment, a laser engraver, and the arrival of additional laptops to support the engineering pathway. In terms of carpentry and that pathway, which is growing quite a bit, our advisory committee this year has met at least 5 times. We actually met this morning. And we have updated equipment, and we are in the midst of finalizing our submissions to the board for full career and tech pathway approval. So that is due by the end of June, and we're in good shape on that. And I can't thank enough the teachers in the carpentry and woodworking pathways. They are really working hard to make sure that we dot every I and cross every T. Thirdly, we have the computer and data science pathway, which is kind of emerging organically, thanks again to really hardworking teachers. And we're pacing ourselves on that, as many of these people, particularly Mr. Ashley and Ms. Bolduc and Mrs. Moore, are involved in all 3 pathways, and it's a lot of work. So cannot thank them enough. We have plans for computer science, AP computer science training this summer, and a course rolling out next year in that regard.
Next
And-
year is in September.
Yes, next school year, thank you. Again, I just want to thank Mrs. Moore, Ms. Scales, our school to career coordinator, Mr. Gouch, Mr. Phillips, and Mr. Ashley for all of their hard work on those pathways. And finally, because of that work, our district is really getting some notice and has been invited to participate in an exclusive group called Pathways by Design, which is from the Massachusetts Center for Collaborative Education. Tiverton High School is one of 6 districts that were invited to participate in the Pathways by Design project, which is a federally grant-funded initiative. And a team of 4 to 5 people from Tiverton High School will be able to receive support in the really planful, thoughtful design and refinement of our pathways that relates to Prepare RI, the Advanced Course Network, and the pathway endorsements that the commissioner has. There's a lot of moving parts and things are updated all the time, but this initiative will allow for coaching on site, kind of on demand, for teacher leaders at the high school to really make sure that we have pathways that make sense and are responsive to the needs of students. They take a design studio approach. It's almost like professional learning in a trial and error kind of way, in terms of really engineering pathways that make sense. And we'll have high quality facilitators, and it's an amazing opportunity for the teachers who choose to participate to really grow professionally. And again, it's due to the fact that the high school has been working so hard on the existing pathways that we were noticed and invited to participate.
Do you know if there are any schools in Rhode Island that do sort of a healthcare tract? Because that is a
There are some
rather
biomedical
growing and
pathways.
relatively lucrative
Yes,
stuff
there
for
are.
some
Yeah,
people.
there are biomedical
Some-
pathways that some.
Some do, I believe.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. I just wonder about that. Every once in
That,
a while.
excuse me, that's one part of the Project Lead the Way. It can go into that, because Durfee High School did that, and they presented when we went to WPI. This is my favorite thing, you all know, Pathways to Careers. I'm so excited, because Tiverton is one of the only districts in the state that has held on to these things all these years when they were doing MCAS, and not MCAS, NECAP, and all the different things, and then we'd go to Park. And when I go to these meetings, I'll never forget, I went to RIDE, and they're having a big celebration, the district that grew the most on these tests. Everybody was there, all excited. They had on their blue suits and their pumps. But anyway, so afterwards I said to them, well, how did you do that? And they said, well, we cut a lot of things like music and art, and we cut carpentry, things that aren't on a test. See, those things aren't on a test. So they don't matter to those districts that want to come out the top in the magazines that they go out, Rhode Island Magazine. So this is what really happened. When I was running last time, someone came up to me and they said, you work so hard and I really admire you, but I can't vote for you. And I said, could you tell me why? And they said, because of the school's rating on some of these things. And I said, well, can you look on the bottom in the little tiny print and see what they're measuring, how many AP courses they have, how many honors courses, SAT scores. Those are all very important. I said, but let me tell you something. We have kids that can build boats. And I went down there and I said to the student, I said, you're doing a great job with your math. And he said, I'm not doing math, Mrs. Black. I said, let me tell you, I can pass any test you give me. I can't build a boat. So that's what we held on to. We have the college and career fair, then we have the tech night, and we have the pipe fitters and the plumbers and the construction people in. Now what I want to do, and I think our goal is to bring all that together on the one night so you don't separate them. Because every person that comes through that door, we have to give them a reason to keep coming through that door. And if they're not good in the higher level things, but they're good in that, and make them proud. And I said to someone, so you make your billions and you want to build your gorgeous mansion. You're going to go out there with your backhoe? No. You're going to call Mr. Messier and the best people in the town that are going to build that. And when you have your big party and your thing overflows, you're going to call someone to come pump it out, and you're going to be darn happy that they came and they know how to do that. Everybody's important, and that's what we've been saying all these years. I'm so excited. The state, and I go to all these, and I come and I've got all these folders and binders on it. And I'm so happy that they finally saw it our way, because that's what we've been fighting for all these years. Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for presenting that.
If I may, too, just to make clear, and I think Mrs. Black said it so well, just to emphasize it, our two existing pathways that are the engineering and the carpentry are considered career technical education pathways. The pathway endorsements that the Department of Education is encouraging when this year's first year students or freshman class are the group that will be able to earn those at graduation. And they have 6 areas that they encourage schools to look at. So our Pathways by Design teacher leaders will be looking particularly within those 6 disciplines. Those are the arts, business and industry, humanities and world language, public service, teaching, and then STEM, science, engineering, technology, and math. And those involve certainly the application or hands-on application, performance-based skills, but also career involvement and academic rigor. So it isn't a choice you make to go this way or that way. Students will be able to choose to go deep or broad. And if they want to go deep into a content area or a pathway, it can be interdisciplinary or it can be discretely one of those 6 areas. So we have a lot of amazing courses and educators with really great ideas about where we might go, and we want to make sure that we take the time to be thoughtful about it and also base it on the student's interest.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Donnelly? Okay, thanks. Item 9C, monthly financial report. Elisa?
So in your packet you have the prior year versus current year. This is through March, so this is we're a good portion of the way through the year at this point. Something to note for the health and medical premiums, line 52101. The big variance that you see there is predominantly from prior year. It was budgeted a little bit higher than it should have been. If you look at this current year, we're at 82%, and that has us more on trend compared to last year, which was at 55%. If you look at the last page of your document, it has us at 63% spend through compared to last year at 57%. So we are on track.
Elisa, I know I did speak with you earlier today, and we didn't cover this health insurance thing. I think also one of the factors in that budgeted amount is the split out this year of retiree health, because last year we didn't have a line item in the budget,
Right,
and this year we do. So it kind of shifted things a little bit.
right.
The other question that I have, so we're at 63% spend for the year, and we're 3/4 of the way through the year.
Yes.
Are you anticipating that we'll come ahead for the year?
So we're pretty much on track. When it comes to around May, that's when we reassess and look at what we have available. And then we, the superintendent and I will discuss which line items might have a bit more of some funds available to make additional purchases.
As in,
So like if there was textbooks, I was just talking with Amy today, there was some carpentry books that she was wanting to look at, and so we were talking about the textbook line item that you and I had spoke about, and so that's a hefty item that I told her that would be a good idea to look into purchasing. So just kind of,
I did notice we're well below budget at this point.
So if we in May feel like we are running or we're going to run a positive, you know, we're not going to be in the black, we're not going to be right at, but we're going to have some positive funding. Do we let the administrators know that, so that if there's things that they like that, like books, like Amy?
Historically, the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
We, depending on what the line item is, you know, we would, you know, if we have textbook money, you know, we'd say, you know, if you want
We have
textbooks.
textbook money,
you know,
but like
put an order in.
transportation, we often don't know that.
Yeah,
until late.
transportation is a late, because of all our spring sports, that doesn't run through until early to mid-June.
Okay.
We'll know by mid to late May, we'll start to see trends that we're pretty confident in. Special ed will start running through. That's usually when we start getting our, the remaining bills from our vendors in mid-May to late May, sometimes early June, so.
So you communicate it depending on the light item?
Yes. And then, you know, again, you know, if we think it's a sizable amount, you know, we'd bring it to the committee with recommendations as to what, if you would like us to expend it or just have it roll.
Well, yeah, if it's already budgeted, then it's your authority, you've already given a line item to spend, so you don't, it doesn't need to come back to us. So it would be just things that sort of, maybe.
It would be nice to know.
There are,
Yeah, but-
well, there are, and again, we usually
You can't, I mean,
usually
there's-
close out, then in July we
There's 50
report
line
out.
items.
you know, where we believe we ended up for the year. And then, again, we still have a laundry list of maintenance issues.
Right. That's
That are in
kinda where I was
that
going.
facility study, from windows
Yep.
to lockers, you name it. We've got a lot of
Yeah,
things.
that's kind of where I was going. Like, if you decide that, well, we really want to use, we do forecast savings, let's say, in special ed, and we really would like to see some renovation, or, you know, something on our construction one-time list moved up, those types of things you'll bring back.
Yeah, and again, working, you know, with Doug for all those years, he's taught me to be conservative and pretty much don't spend it until you know you have it, you know, so unless it's, you know, textbooks or something that, you know, that's not a crazy number in and of itself, you know, we'll spend it, but otherwise we'll let it roll and, you know, and then the committee can decide how to expend, if there is a fund balance, how to expend those funds.
Building on that, I think it's really important now that there is a monthly financial report that we can use that so that we won't be surprised. Certainly some things roll out quarterly or based on billing, but other things, you know, we'll all be really transparent and clear about what's in our line, how much we've spent, how much, you know,
I
we
like
won't be
this
spending.
format, too. Do you guys like this format?
Mm-hmm.
I like this format.
I love this format.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
like this
Elisa.
format.
I do too. It's good.
Okay. Item 9D, request for grant approvals, Tiverton Middle School. Is that Mrs. Tucker?
I'm just asking the committee to approve the grants from Bay Coast Bank, Whole Kids Foundation Garden Grant, Alan Sean Feinstein, and the Big Yellow School Bus Grant.
I think the details are covered in
Details
the
are there.
packet.
Second, and thank you very much for
Any
applying for
discussion?
those.
All those in favor? Okay,
We
thank
love the
you.
grants, thank you.
Yep. Item 9F, approval to bid to purchase fire safety doors at the high school.
Yes, we went out to bid a month and a half or so ago to replace the fire doors that are here. Those are the wooden doors. When you walk down this hallway, they're the doors that will close in case of a fire. We've been told...
They're the ones that close off the hall.
Right. We've been told by the fire marshal, he said, I'm going to cite you if you don't, so he gave us, you know, the heads up on it. We went out to bid. We received a bid of $71,307 from New England School Services. I'm asking the committee to approve the bid award, and it would come out of our fund balance.
So this is money that has not yet been allocated.
This money has not been allocated. And I would like to order, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to order the doors, so that's why I'm asking the committee for approval to move forward now.
Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a question.
Yep.
Elisa, you made mention of the procurement policy that required us to solicit bids through a newspaper advertisement. Is that still the way we should be going, the way all the other districts go? Is it effective? I noticed we only got one bid.
Is that a state policy, or is that?
I think I believe it's our policy, not
Is it something
necess-
we should be revisiting at all?
Well, we revisited, it's probably a policy subcommittee revisit, because we used to have, when we advertised for teachers, that's how you used to do it
Oh,
20 years ago.
used to be the
So-
way.
No, but I'm just saying that it's a whole leftover, so
Yeah.
it needs to be revised.
Do we actually, for
Yes.
instance, did we also do it on the internet or
Yeah,
another,
we
just in the
journal.
newspaper?
Do we know of any other ways?
And it's still used because...
I was just gonna say, is that still the industry standard?
Oh, yeah.
People still, we get bid, now this is a unique
Well, that's,
order. I mean, there's not a whole lot of companies that do this kind of work, that we went out for.
Well,
but
that
we
was my other question.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, to answer the first part of the question is, yes, we probably should revise it. But I don't think we should not do the newspaper
Right.
either, so, but that's for the subcommittee, we can work on that.
So I don't think we need a specific referral to the subcommittee. Maybe you guys can just take it up.
Put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
We also went out for bid recently for another thing, and we got a lot of responses back. So
the
I
same
think
mechanism?
yeah.
Well, no, we went out to bid for the security upgrades, and we got a number of bids.
And you did the same way.
Yes,
we did.
and we got a number of,
It's just-
because more companies are into that.
So maybe just an update adding other venues,
So-
or other ways to.
Have you worked with this vendor before?
Yes,
You have, okay. And so you're, at this point, satisfied this
Yes.
is a fair bid?
yes. And they do quality work.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
And item 9G, 2018 state assessment schedule.
We'll be quick.
It's a lot better.
I'm shutting off the microphone.
You have the schedule in front of you, which was recently revised, we know that we're familiar with the portal. We are doing most of this state testing online. You have the detail in front of you. The exceptions are the PSAT and SAT, which were done the traditional way with paper and pencil, but all the other assessments are online, and the number of test sessions is greatly reduced. Things are more efficient. I think everyone would agree down the line on that. So in grades 3 through 8, there are 2 ELA sessions and 2 math sessions, and in grades 5 and 8, there are 2 science sessions. This year is a field test or census test, so the science assessment does not count. But you do have the full schedule there with the exception of science, because they're still rolling that out and training us in how to prepare for that assessment or field test. Even the alternate assessment now for our students with intellectual disabilities is given online, and things are moving ahead for all students that way, so that students are not overly taxed with testing, and we're trying to do it in a chunked way. So ELA has been, for the most part, completed, and we're waiting a little bit for the math assessments, which will come starting May 9th.
I should say, we definitely have improved. It definitely has improved from what we had to what we have. And it's not, I don't want people to think it's an important data set. It's just, it was very cumbersome at one point.
Oh, we used to have it twice a year. We used to have it in March and then
I'm happy to see the
May.
draft in the state.
Okay. Item 9H, update on social emotional learning. Big night for you.
So I'll be brief. I'll try and be brief. So in terms of social emotional learning, thanks to your support, we do have increased staffing now with more budgeted for next school year. Just a reminder that we have a generous grant from the Van Buren Charitable Foundation for work at the high school that will focus on studying the social emotional learning and digital literacy standards, and having teacher leaders get up to speed with, again, great facilitation to really figure out and ask questions about where the commonalities are between the social emotional learning standards, which are sort of traditional face-to-face and internal self-regulation kinds of strategies, and the digital standards. And there is a lot there that connects and affords commonalities. We also want to take measure of what we're really doing well in terms of supporting kids with, and where we need to grow. And so we're looking for teacher leaders from the high school to build, to get on board with that and take leadership. Mr. Ashley and Miss Bolduc, Miss Elwell, and Miss Krager and I seem to always have a conflict when we try and meet about that grant, but we will be convening soon, again, to solicit teacher input and get started on that work, which will be a multi-year grant. And then additionally, at the district level, across all of our schools, we have a group of teachers interested in studying the standards, which are recently approved by our Department of Education, and studying the research. There was a white paper recently from the Aspen Institute, just came out in March, so we're going to look at that. Our teachers know that our kids have increasing support needs in terms of, and we have increasing support needs in terms of social emotional learning. We're, I think, to a person in the district, very passionate about that, but we want to be also strategic and planful. So we're going to be looking at data reviews around attendance and engagement and discipline and interventions, and really try and thoughtfully think through what the research says, where we need to maybe make some shifts, and then come back to, as a committee, representing all the grade levels, come back with recommendations to build a multi-tiered systemic support plan for all kids, so that it's not just, oh, Amy's having a crisis and needs support. It's all kids need to have opportunities to practice and learn the social emotional skills. The Aspen Institute's report, white paper, talks about how we teach is as instructive as what we teach. And just as the culture of a classroom must reflect social belonging and emotional safety, so can academic instruction embody and enhance these competencies. And academic instruction can actually get better because we value these competencies. So it's going to be long-term work, but I think for me, what sums it up is that social emotional learning is not another thing on the plate. It actually is the plate, and everything builds from there.
Good.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes, Mrs.
Yes, I totally agree with that. When we, when I was teaching, the IQ was one thing over here. The EQ could go to the sky. Your emotional quotient, we can work together, and especially right now, it's so important for everyone, teachers, parents, staff, everybody, and the students. So that's wonderful that we're looking into that. Very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and item 9I, planning board update.
Yes, every year, Mr. Eric and I always ask the planning board, and I'm glad that Mr. Perry's here, might want to talk about the development that's coming into town. And I did pass out the latest number of houses, so would you like to make any comments on that? Just the developments that we're looking into, so that when people say that our enrollment's going down so we don't need money, we can just dispel that immediately.
What happened was, back in 2008, the state approved, well, Tiverton approved all these houses.
Yep.
There's 800 of them that are ready to go in Tiverton, in different stages. They could start to be built. Could. They're coming before us.
Have they been granted building permits?
They're in different stages of the permitting.
But they're all like basically.
But let me go.
Where they're going to be.
Yes. Let me go back to, like I said, back in 2008, they were approved by Tiverton Planning Board, quite a few of them. And what happened was the bottom fell out, construction went down, so the state said, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll give you 10 years to come back, and we'll hold it for you for 10 years. So we're dealing with, I just got one today from 2008, another development that wants to come in. And you have to go by their standards back in 2008, because they've already been approved. They're shovel ready.
Yeah.
If they want to start building, they could build. So you have to go by it. There's not many changes you can make.
No.
But what you got going on right now is Sousa Road on the left-hand side, you got 173 houses going up on top of the hill. On the bottom of Sousa Road, you got 55 houses on one side and 53 on the other. And then across from the police station, you got a gentleman who wants to come in and put 173 units in there. And that's going to be with commercial development. He wants to put both.
Any over 55? Or?
There's 2 over 55. And that's what I keep pushing for. And the rest of the planning board also is, that's the first question, is it going to be over 55? There's quite a few little small developments that are coming in off of Crandall Road. They're not only picking on the north end anymore. They're going on the south end. And there's about 5 or 6 that want to go down on Peckham's Farm, actually. There's Neck Road, I think it is. There's 6 houses that he wants to put in there. Crandall Road, there's a developer that wants to put in 53 in there, duplexes. That's a 55 or older.
Where on Crandall?
There's a lot of property way down the end of Crandall.
That Winwood place, the Wing
Yeah.
place. Wingo.
Wingo
Yeah.
Farm. Then you got the guy on Highland Road, Highland Ridge, who's undecided what he wants to do. He, first he came in with over 100 houses. Now he's down to 5. So he keeps changing his plan. So right now you got 800, a potential of 800 houses.
Okay, they're gonna maybe, half in a year, half in 2 years. Do you have any sense, like, how quick you're looking at having these families and houses?
Well, I think you got a few things going on in this area. First, you got the rail coming into Fall River. And that's going to happen within the next 2 to 3 years. That will happen. They've already been approved all the money. So what's going to happen is you got...
Somebody really wants to.
Sure isn't my wife. So with the rail coming to Fall River, people are looking to build in Tiverton because they can get the rail, drive into Boston, and they'll take the rail into Boston. The other thing you got going on in Tiverton, we all want our taxes lowered. With your lower taxes, guess what comes? More houses. Because people look at us and they say, your taxes are going down. You went from 19 to 15.
That's a good place to live.
It's a good place to live, and it's only going to go down even more. So that's my opinion on why you have all these houses coming in.
So.
People are looking at us and they want to live here.
People have asked, well, why, because I know, like Little Compton, for instance, everything's 3-acre minimum. But
Yeah.
that's not gonna impact any of this,
No.
because like you said, these were all approved.
Prove that. There's also a new law too that the state just put into effect January 1st, where if it's zoned properly and what you want to do fits, there's nothing that the planning board can do. It has to go, or we pay a fine for not letting it be built.
Right. So that's why I'm just trying to, for like planning for the school department, I'm trying to get a sense of, it's hard, I guess, to know,
Yeah.
like when we're gonna start.
I would say within the next 3 years you'll see all it. If everything goes within 3 years, you'll see these 800 houses.
And again, just 10 years ago when we built the elementaries, one of the things we talked about, JCJ, were the architects at the time, one of the things we talked about was that schools would be big enough if things stayed relatively constant. And one of the examples that Greg Smalley gave us was high-speed rail into Fall River.
Yeah,
You did? It was
And-
supposed to be $38 million
And
bond. But they
that's,
said no.
it's coming.
it's coming now, so that's just,
I can get you a list for your next meeting of where they all are.
Yeah, that'd actually be good.
That really would be helpful, because it's hard to
And
just take a look at this list that we've gotten from Mrs. Black that
Yeah,
says,
I'll give you the updated list. I'll get an updated list.
like how many would be over 55
Yeah.
and how many would
Yeah,
not?
that's what Kate used to give me, just the basic list
Yep.
of where they were and what they were.
Yeah,
That's
and
all I
these
really
are all the
wanted.
one, like I said, these are all in some stage of the system. Not yet, no. But
So, but when we're looking at planning and we're looking at strategic planning, that's something.
We have to know that.
Keep in the back of our mind,
Mhm.
just know,
it's the greatest threat to the
at
district.
some point,
Yeah, we have to know that.
4 years.
it's coming.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
gonna blow up.
Well, I think you'll see construction on a few of them by the end of this year. Yeah, because they're in their
there's a few
finals.
going up across from the Boogamarsh Park. And there's been a few onesies
Yeah,
and
but
twosies around town.
those are small developments. He's building them as he sells them. So he'll build. I think he's got 2 going on right now.
Yep.
But he only builds as he sells.
That's good.
That's good. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, all these other ones are large developments. They're not, you know, twos and threes, they're going to do them all at once. Yeah. But I will get that sheet for you for your next
Thank you,
meeting.
Dave.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, item 10, announcements, scheduling.
Next meeting is
May 8th.
May,
May 8th.
Ms. Wardell?
I'd like to announce that the fourth graders from Tiverton are being honored by Kentucky Red Sox at the Most Improved Student program on Sunday, May 6th at their 1:35 home game. And all the Tiverton fourth graders going out onto the field at a pregame ceremony.
That's nice.
So they're going out with all their families. So, Four Sox, fourth grade.
Thank you, that's great.
This is,
The Ranger School, most improved students, the Four Sox is May 22nd. So it's the similar situation with, you know, Suzette just described.
you have warmer weather, Mr. Cabral.
Yeah, that's nice.
22nd.
Sun was it?
Yeah.
Do they still let the kids run the bases on Sundays?
On Sunday.
They do, yeah. Yeah, right after the Sunday game they do,
A lot of fun.
yeah.
It's a nice ceremony. You know, we've been participating for years.
Yeah, so
And
good.
it'll be, there's probably 15 or 16 schools that are on every night. And, you know, the kids come down, they announce themselves and they walk on. So it's a nice ceremony and their families.
Yeah, as soon as they're all done, they can all take pictures with Paul. So it's really cute.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Larkin, on the next agenda, not to cause any commotion, but I've gotten a few calls about, to honor our vertical alignment we've been talking about and coming together, why aren't we all Tigers? They want to know why something else, and like Ranger School's Tiger Cubs and somebody else is something. So we can just discuss that, like having Tiger Cubs at the elementary and then Tigers at the high.
Can we have the principals discuss it?
Yeah, of course. That's why I'm just mentioning it tonight. I'd like to get input from everyone, parents and principals and everybody, because yeah, sure, and the history of it and all that stuff. So I was just have that discussion.
You want to be a pup.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so we could just discuss that, Mr. Barrett.
Absolutely. But if,
We'll just talk about it, right?
Let's talk about it.
That's all.
Just mascots or
We don't want to.
vertical mascot alignment.
Yep, that's right.
Like that.
So what about the
Not going to say what I was going to say.
fox?
Oh,
Huh?
we'll just do that. Just paint.
Uh,
You want us to paint?
Well, I had
We'll
just asked for just a continuation.
So you're going to say it was.
Oh.
One thing.
Speaking of, while we're talking about,
That's fine.
just to follow up on the mascot alignment conversation, one of the things that I noticed, and I'm going to, that I think we need to look at, is the sign at the middle school, the big fox that's there. It's getting a little tattered, so I'd like.
But before we do anything about it, let's decide.
Well, I understand, whatever it's going to be, we need a new sign, is my point. Whether it's the fox, a cub, or eagle, or fish.
all right.
So, scheduling,
I got to talk.
so for now, we have a May 8th, and what's the other one, the 22nd?
Yeah.
Is that Tuesday?
22nd.
Put that one in the memoir.
Okay, give a motion to adjournment. Mrs. Black, sit down. We haven't adjourned. We haven't adjourned. Would you please make a motion to adjourn?